Well, good afternoon and welcome to our new knowledge session today. My name is Sandy Ratliff. I am with Locust, formerly known as Virginia Community Capital, and we are delighted to have you with us today. If this is your first or your 100th time, we're happy to have you join us for these professional development sessions. This is a collaborative partnership. Man, I can't speak today. It's a partnership between the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator, and the town of Abington. And we started this, and it's hard to believe, in 2014 as a way to support our Washington County Business Challenge, which we'll announce the winners later this month, and that we've been doing for over 11 years. And the reason we did this program was to help continue to help our entrepreneurs learn new skills to build their business and better. And now it's become not only a Washington County initiative, but it's a statewide and multi-state initiative. So we're happy to have you join us. Today's session is being recorded for education and training purposes, and it will be made available up on our YouTube channel called New Knowledge. You can go there and find over 200 workshops that we've done since we started recording them, video recording them in 2015. It will also be available on Facebook on the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator's Facebook page, and also the Chamber and others put it on there, so it's available. Now, before I introduce our speaker, I want to note that we do have everyone muted for just to keep the webinar flowing, but if you have a question for our presenter, you can either post those in the Q&A section, or if you would like to ask that, if you'll just send me a note, I'll be happy to turn your audio and video on. But any other questions, just post those in the Q&A section, and we would appreciate that. One other thing, if you're late coming in, I wanted to note that we are getting ready to start planning for our fall schedule of new knowledge sessions. So if you have a topic that you would like for us to include, especially for Letterpress Communications on various other marketing needs that you have, please share those with me. Either put those in the chat or send me an email. You should have that. And we want to know, we do this for you to help you, and that's our goal and objective. Now, we're delighted to have Alexandra Veatch with Letterpress Communication. She is the creative director there, and she's no stranger to the New Knowledge program, and I've known Alex for a number of years. I can tell you one thing, she's passionate about helping businesses and helping her community, and I really appreciate her volunteering her time. It's not easy to put these workshops together. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. So thank you for putting time aside for new knowledge, but we appreciate that. So today is all about marketing, talking about branding and how you can use Canva. Of course, if you know me, you know that talking about marketing is one of my favorite topics. I just think it's just fun, and it helps you to be more creative. So I'm looking forward, Alex, to learning from you today. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sandy. And as we're going through, I'll put out a call for people to answer some questions. So feel free to put those in the chat. We'll be watching out for them. I want this to be as interactive as possible because our goal today is really to talk about graphic design principles, how to understand them, and then how to utilize Canva the best. So any sort of platform, whether you're using Canva or Adobe, or even just like using your phone to create photos and videos, if you know the principles behind it, you're automatically going to be better at what you're doing. So we'll go ahead and get started. If you want to, I would love to see in the chat, some people tell me what your organization is and what is your level of familiarity with Canva. Are you an expert? Are you kind of average? Or are you just getting started? So as we're going through, if you want to pop that in the chat, I'll be on the lookout. We'll start a little bit with Letterpress Communication. We are a full service advertising agency that focuses on rural communications and what we call community powered marketing. So we believe that powerful teams, powerful stories ultimately lead to growth and to good. So everything we talk about today, will be wrapped around these ideas of storytelling, working with your team, creating growth, creating good. And that's why we like to lean into Canva. So, a lot of agencies, it's kind of strange to think about, even as a graphic designer myself. If you'd have told me 5 years ago that I would be using Canva so often, I would have said you're crazy. But we understand that Canva is a great tool for teams to sustainably grow their brand. So Canva, especially Canva Pro, and this is not a paid advertisement for Canva. We don't get any money from it. Canva and Canva Pro especially are great ways to manage your brand assets and to make sure that you have continuity in your brand overall, which is one of the reasons why we believe that it's good, especially for small teams, small businesses, rural communities. All right, we've got a lot of good stuff coming in the chat. Let's take a quick look. So we've got some folks from higher ed. Oh, we've got a chocolatier. Oh, who's a frustrated time to time user. Canva can definitely be frustrating. I get that. Realtor, the Canva's great, especially when you're just trying to resize social posts. So we can talk a little bit about that today too. We've got some folks that have been using Canva for a little while. Got some novice to intermediate. We've got a lavender farm, average knowledge. Great. There's some names in here. Hello to those who know me. River City Market grocer owner. Okay, very cool. Got some nonprofits. Awesome. So we've got some people who are using Canva on a regular basis and some that are brand new. So this is great. We will try to cover as much as we possibly can. When we get to the end of the presentation, we'll actually spend some time in Canva. So that's a great time for you to put questions in the chat. If there's things that you want to see or things that you're having issues with, we can try to cover those as we get to the end of the presentation. But we're going to start at the beginning. And to me, the beginning is understanding your brand. So for those of you that joined us last time, this is a little bit of overlap, but we want to always start with that foundation of your brand. I've used this graphic for years now, that your brand is so much more than your logo. So it's really easy to get wrapped up in having a really nice logo, having your logo everywhere, which is super important, but it's also remembering that there is so much underneath the water that goes into your brand. So that's your fonts and your colors. It's your photos and your video. So understanding what your brand is portraying, making sure that you're visually showing that. It's your tone and your messaging. It's your customer service. It's the way that you talk to people. I think Jeff Bezos says it the best, that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So thinking through what is your brand? What are your keywords? What are your tone words? What do your photos and videos look like? Those are all so important. So I want to take just a couple of minutes. And if everybody could get out a piece of paper, and I want you to write down your 3 words that represent your brand. Just 3 words. And if anybody wants to put them in the chat, I would love to hear them. Sandy, what are 3 words that describe Locus's brand?
Sorry, I'm trying to get my fingers to work to make it to bring it up.
That's okay. I called you out.
No, that's okay. The 3, because I was actually writing them down. The 3 words I would consider is community, landing, and impact.
Awesome. Awesome. We've got some coming in on the chat. Activation, beautification, community. Great. Local, quality service. These are awesome. Anybody else want to share your 3 words? And these 3 words are always a good guiding principle to branding. So if you have your 3 words, you know your 3 words, and you are living those out in your brand, then you have something to always go back to and think about. So when you're creating, are the visuals matching your 3 words? I've got some more in here. Full circle, empowering, community, mountains, river. Deborah, you got some easy ones visualize there. Inviting local professional. These are all wonderful. Thank you all for sharing. So another important thing to understand before you start creating your visuals is your communications channels. There are three that we recognize as marketers, and that is owned channels, earned channels, and paid channels. And if we were live in person, I would have some candy or something to give you if you got the question correct. But can anybody give me an example of an owned channel? You can drop that in the chat. Kristen, website. Good. You would get that piece of candy. Absolutely. Your website is your number one piece of owned channel. Lily, you put in your Facebook page. That is very subjective. And I think for those of you who we all experienced the Facebook meta downtime yesterday. I think everybody texted people thinking that they were getting hacked. But that's a really good example and a really good reminder that you don't own your social media pages. You even can think about them as renting versus owning. So yesterday's outage showed us that we're just renters of our Facebook presence. We're renters of our accounts. We only can control so much of it. Your owned channels, the things that you have full control over, and yes, there's still platforms involved in outages and those sorts of things, but your website, you completely own how that works. Sarah, blogs, absolutely. So your blog on your website, your digital newsletter, that email list. Mary, you got that. Perfect. So your email list, that's great. All of those things, you control those, you manage those, even your file storage. So if you're using Google Drive to store files, if you end up using Canva to start keeping your collateral in one place, those are all places that you owned. But your owned channels are the places where you control what is said, how it is said, and what it looks like. We talk about owned channels first because that is where you want to point people back to. All of your marketing should have a call to action. And I always recommend that your call to action points you back to an owned channel. So if it could be subscribe to our newsletter, it could be read our blog, it could be check out our website. All of those allow you to have measurable outcomes in your advertising. Again, because you own those metrics, you own that channel. Moving on to earned channels. Does anybody have an example of what an earned channel might be? Reviews. Yes, Mary Ellen, that's right. Newspaper article. Absolutely. Your number one earned channel is word of mouth. So reviews are the digital version of word of mouth. Newspaper article, that's a little more traditional in terms of earned media, but getting the local newspaper to write about you or getting onto a local radio show, those are all ways to earn communications. Yep, customer reviews. One thing that's super important is to treat your earned channels like social media. So even Facebook, all the comments that you get in a way that is earned. So interacting with your audience on your social channels, interacting with your reviews on review sites like Google Business, Yelp, all of those places you want to interact with those customers. So if somebody takes the time to leave you a review on Google Business, take the time to like that review and comment back to them. If it's not a great review, still take the time to talk to that person, take it offline, and hopefully do some customer recovery. But interacting with those digital earned channels is just as important as interacting with customers face to face. And then moving on to paid channels. Anybody have some good examples of what a paid channel might be? Google Ads, yeah. Advertisements, social media boosts, absolutely. And I really consider social media to be a paid channel now. Everything is pay to play. In a recent workshop that I did, several people were talking about how posts on Facebook that used to work for them were no longer working, but they haven't been boosting posts. So even just taking $20 or $30 a month, $50 to boost your social posts will help you in the algorithm, will help you get more eyeballs on there. It Everything from digital display ads to Google ads fit into paid channels to billboards and paid print advertisements. So there's lots of different paid options. But I always remind people, especially small businesses and organizations, make sure that your own channels are where they need to be first. Then move on to your earned channels. Get as much free marketing as you can through your earned channels. And then once you have your owned and your earned channels in a good position, then start paying. So think about that in the order: owned, earned, and then paid. So once you have a good grasp on your brand, you have a good grasp on your channels, it's time to start designing things, to creating that collateral. And so before you hop into Canva or into any design software, I always recommend gathering your assets. There's nothing more frustrating than sitting down to create a social media post and you don't have the photo that you were looking for. So having good structure to your collateral, you have it all in one place, is super important and will help save you time. Because in the end, your time is just as much an investment as your paid advertising. So thinking about your time is money just as much as paying for something. So the assets that you want to gather: your logo files, your brand colors. So if you don't know your brand colors, but you have a logo, you can work with maybe a local designer to pull those colors out. There are color pickers and things online that you can find your colors as well if you don't have those. Photos and videos, any sort of content that you have gathered. And then other visual elements. Are you using icons? I know somebody said they were a grocery store. Do you have little icons that match different departments? Pulling those things all into one place is important. For Canva, you'll want to pull PNG files, hopefully with a transparent background. But if not, if you have a paid Canva account, I can show you how to remove that background as well. And then understanding your collateral, understanding your channels. What are you creating for? Are you creating social media post images? Are you creating something for your website? Are you doing some print marketing? Are you doing packaging? All of these things can be done in Canva, but understanding what that end product is the most important thing when it comes to design. In fact, that's my favorite question to ask somebody when we start a design project is where and what do you expect to use this for in the end? We just started a project with a nonprofit organization to do their annual report. And my first question to them was, do you all plan to print this or will this just be a digital report? And they plan to do both. So that is a huge consideration to what we're designing and how we're designing it based on that end use. So if you stop and think, what am I doing this for? What does success look like? What is the end goal here? You're automatically going to start yourself off on a good path. So we'll talk a minute and talk about crap. Oh, crap. This is one of my favorite ways to think about design. There are 4 words: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And if you can get crap into your designs, then you are doing a good job. So we're going to start off talking about contrast. And contrast comes in lots of different ways in design. So it can be, here we've got good color contrast. We've got white and navy blue. It's strong, it's stark differences. Contrast can also be with your fonts. So you might pair a thick sans serif font with a thin script font, and then you've got contrast working that way. Do you have good contrast in your photography? All the elements of your design need to have good contrast. And so what we're going to do, each of these words, we're going to look at a design, and I want you all to tell me if that design shows that element. Um, this is actually this was actually a Canva templated flyer. So we'll talk a little bit more about it, but I want you all to tell me, does this have contrast? Do you feel like it has straw? Too busy? Good. Okay. Anybody else? It does have font contrast. Absolutely. It's got contrast from the background to that kind of darker teal color. Any other thoughts on contrast? It does have some color contrast. It is tough though, because it is kind of busy. It could use more contrast. There's some spots where the fonts and the colors aren't contrasting enough. Yeah, the color contrast could be better. And I think for a lot of this, it comes down to the readability of it too. So if you can have these four elements pull through your design, then it's also not just a good design, but it's a design that people can understand. Yeah, it is hard to read. I think even if this wasn't digital and it was printed, you probably would still have some issues, especially I would say down here at the bottom where it's got the website and the social tag. That color does not contrast with the background enough. So thinking about the readability to your audience is important too. All right, our next word is repetition. Are you repeating elements throughout your design? And the first question I would be asking is, are you repeating your branded elements throughout the design? So are you using your fonts? Are you using your colors? If you're doing something like this, so, we are close to Easter. I know this is being recorded. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just know we just got into spring and I'm getting excited about warmer weather. So that's why we had the Easter egg hunt. If you're doing something that is themed like this and it needs to have brighter colors, are you still using your logo, but in a meaningful way, maybe in all white or something to match, to not compete with the design? All right. Do you feel like this design has repetition? Yep. The fonts are repeated. What else is getting repeated in the design? Yep. The eggs and the bunnies. And not just the elements themselves, but the look and feel of that graphic. So they kind of have that more animated. They're not flat. They kind of have a roundness to them. Some of the eggs have the light spot on them, so they have that kind of same animation style, which is something you want to repeat. Yeah, Amanda, the colors are being repeated. You've got similar colors in the banners to the eggs. The little butterflies are around there. But again, you can have repetition, but it maybe isn't good repetition. You could argue that there are too many eggs on there. And maybe too many bunnies. I think that bunny in the middle is super cute, but the two bunnies on the side of the wording might be a little too much. The fonts are being repeated. I counted, there are 3 different fonts on this. I typically recommend, especially if you're just beginning into design work, to stick with 2. I would not go any more than 3. And for this, you've got good contrast between like the header font and then the information font. And I probably would have left it at that. 2 different fonts that are contrasting nicely. Always remember, less is more. Alignment. So alignment is so important from a psychology perspective. Our brains like to look at things that are organized. So the more you can have things aligned, that your spacing is the same throughout your design, the easier it's going to be for somebody to look at and to take in quickly. One of my favorite examples, I live in a small town. You go to the grocery store and there's that big display board with everybody's flyers and business cards and all these things on it. It is overwhelming sometimes to look at that, especially when you get into summer and there's all kinds of fun events and big posters and small things, and the whole board is a mess. you don't want your design to be like that. You want your design to be clean and clear. You want it to have bright, contrasting colors. You want it to have white space. You want these things to be aligned throughout. So that way somebody can look at it quickly and intake that information than having to kind of hunt for the information. And alignment really helps out with that. Do you all feel like this has alignment? Oh, we've got competing answers. So some people say yes, some people say no. Um, I think you can make an argument both ways. So everything is kind of centered aligned. Yeah, Diana, I agree. It's too much information. It's too much to look at. They did do a good job of having symmetry, which is helpful. So symmetry and alignment kind of go hand in hand. But everything is center aligned. If I don't know if you noticed, but the way I have this graphic, I had everything aligned to the right hand side. So left and right alignment can be much more helpful than center alignment. Center alignment can be hard to read. So if you can anchor information and align it to a graphic element, that often helps and makes things easier to look at. It's also important to remember that we read left to right. So you want your designs to be left to right. We also, our brains like the rule of thirds. So if any of you are photographers, you can understand that you kind of want things centered or intentionally in one third or the other. The same thing happens with design. So the rule of thirds is really important. Yeah, Jay, I agree. Like centering text makes it hard to look at. You can't find the beginning and end. And again, those precious seconds of somebody reading your design, you're losing them. So it's just like a newspaper article. You want to capture people in the first sentence. You want to capture people as quick as possible and make sure they get everything in. But back to the rule of thirds, we also in design work like to use the Z principle. So again, reading left to right, you also want to pull people all the way through your design by kind of going left to right and pulling people back and forth through the design. This one does it a little bit, but again, because there's so much color, so much text, you almost don't know where to look to start. So if you think you're starting to get too much on your design, stop, walk away from it, have somebody else look at it, and ask them how long. Ask them like 3 questions about what is in that design. Can you tell me, after you all looked at this for a while, but can you tell me what the event is, what's going to be happening at the event, and what time it starts? And I would guess that somebody who had looked at this for just a minute or two would not be able to answer all 3 of those questions. I also think this is probably a good example of trying to fill space. There's a lot of people when you first get started in design work that you have this need to completely fill up the space. I actually did a workshop last night at the Ford Studios in Marion that we did a pizza stone with a mandala design. So it had circle designs all through it. And that is your first instinct, is to keep filling the design, keep filling the space. So don't be afraid of negative space. Don't be afraid of white space. Again, having that cushion around your elements helps people see it better. And then proximity. So proximity and alignment go hand in hand, again, because we want people to understand what they're seeing and you want to understand it quickly. So for a flyer, there's typically a way that we expect information to be, especially like on posters like this. So this one does it to a certain extent. The title is at the top, and then the information goes down from there. I always recommend, like if you have a sponsored event and there's logos that need to be on it, we typically expect logos to be at the beginning. But do you feel like this design has good proximity of information? Yeah, it does like hierarchy. It could use more white space. It does do a good job of directing your eye to the title. And that is the most important thing is you want people to know that it's an egg hunt and brunch. Um, I think the most important information is where is it and when is it and how much does it cost to go? And that information is super deprioritized. We expect it to be towards the bottom, which is it's in the right place and the information is together. You want the start time and the cost and the location to all be together. We expect that, but it is a lot smaller than all the other details. So twice in here, they've got Meet the Easter Bunny, fun outdoor games, free brunch buffet. And then they go on to say egg decorating, egg relay race, egg and spoon race, bunny hop race. You probably could easily get rid of some of that and then point people to the website for more details. So Kristen, you said it feels too overwhelming. So that's exactly where you can start cutting things out. Where do you have repeated information? And then how are you pointing people back to your own channels to get more information and more details? Because you want them, especially for a free event, you want to gather some interaction ahead of the event. So getting people to go to your website to learn more is a great way to get people involved and bring them in before the event even starts. Well, so awesome. We will come back to this, but I wanted to give you some examples and some inspiration of things that have been designed in Canva. So again, I told you that here at Letterpress, we like to be sustainable. We like to teach people to fish. So if we have a project, especially like a grant project that has limited funding, we'll often use Canva because then we can provide everything that we've designed to the client in a meaningful way so they have things to move forward with whenever we're not with them. So all of these things, even this presentation was designed in Canva. And you can do lots of different things with Canva, especially with social graphics. So one example I love to give, the green front furniture logo is not a perfect square. And if you've noticed and you have a logo that isn't a perfect square, you might have noticed that it doesn't fit into your social profile frames as well as possible. So Canva is a great place to just resize your logo to make it work for your social media profile. You can see for our letterpress header, we have some conventions where we use photography with cutout backgrounds. And so we highlighted that in our profile and we did all of that in Canva. Things have changed a little bit with social media. You can have a little more text on your images now, especially like this Meet the Consultant post. So this is a great way to pair a little bit of information with a face. So Canva is a good place to do that. Faces always do better on social media. We're there. We want to see people. So anytime you can pair information with a face is a great way to get more engagement. And then the two examples on the far side are ways to kind of cheat the system when it comes to your graphics. So we added just a little bit of movement to both of these social posts. And when you export it from Canva, you'll export it as a video and upload it to social as a video. So you might not have a lot of B-roll videography, or you don't have the time to go out and shoot something new, but you can add movement to your graphics. So like the 12 days of rugs for Greenfront, we basically each day had a different rug. We highlighted the rug in the background of the graphic, had that little frame that we made with the ornament, and then dropped snow in it as an overlay. And so just automatically you get that little bit of movement and you get a video to post instead of a static graphic. My internet's not doing great, so I'm not going to play these videos, but I will send them to you all. Sandy will send them to you all as a link. Canva is a great place to do social videos. So it could be something as simple as a reel. When you watch the one of Jess, she'll give you a little social writing for social tip. But that was something that we just had a team meeting and we just recorded some quick tips on our phones, added a little bit of text to it, and then an ending slide. And then we had something branded that we could put onto social media. I like to use this Square example, we had a reel for Greenfront that was shot as a reel, shot in vertical video, but then later on had wanted to use it for a post. And so we took the reel, put it into Canva using the social square, added that sidebar of information to it, and then all of a sudden we had a square that we could use to post on different platforms. So you also can use things to resize, especially vertical video. Digital assets. Quite often you use Constant Contact or MailChimp or something like that for your online newsletter. And there's only so much that you can do in terms of getting it branded. So this Go Virginia Region 3 newsletter, that save the date graphic, that was built in Canva for a social post. But then the little graphics to the side, the little calendar, branded colored calendar icon, the header, the mark your calendar, those were all done in Canva and sized correctly for MailChimp and then imported as images in MailChimp. And then they get imported into the design. So you can take a really simple template and zhuzh it up by creating imagery in Canva, exporting it and uploading it to your newsletter or even to your website. With like that Halifax example, the header hero image graphic was created in Canva. And in fact, it was a video too. It has a little bit of that snow falling effect to it. You can use Canva to create branded collateral. This is a program out of George Mason that teaches teachers project-based learning in a project-based way. And they had created a bunch of collateral over different grant periods, and none of it kind of matched. And so they knew that they wanted to be using Canva so that their whole team and their grad assistants could be working on these designs. And so we ended up creating them an infographic and then hand out infographic sheets that go along with their planning. So you can just do a one-off graphic, or you can build out a whole branded look for yourself in Canva. And then you can even print things. So we've got a newsletter that gets printed, but also gets sent as a digital PDF. We have a hot sauce label that is a good example. And so the biggest thing with print collateral is knowing what your end size needs to be. I did a workshop a while back that was had a lot of folks that were at the farmers market, and they wanted labels for the different packaging. And so knowing what your end size is will help you create something in Canva that's useful and that works for you.
Hey, we've got a question. I wanted to just, since you're right in this area, what size images do you recommend for MailChimp? I haven't been able to find a size that fits our newsletter nicely.
That's great. That's a great question. And it really depends on your templates. So if you're in MailChimp and you are or Constant Contact and you're using a templated design, it will have those frames for you, and you usually can right click and inspect that frame and see what size it was. Another way to do it would be to create something bigger, and then like in MailChimp, you can size it down or it'll tell you that it's too big. For online use like that, you do want to have smaller sized graphics. So you want it to be clean and crisp, but you don't want to get too large because that will affect your load time. Especially being in a rural area, we know internet isn't always so great. I'm actually on my hotspot because our internet is down today. That load time is super important. So for digital collateral, like your newsletter, like your website, you'll want to have like a mid-size image. If you're exporting things for social media wants the biggest image possible. So having good resolution on your photos is far more important for Instagram and Facebook. And Canva will actually show you all of these things. You can get into Canva and say Instagram square, and it's going to pull up the exact pixels. So it's also possible if you're using a standard template in MailChimp, there actually might be that size that you need in MailChimp. And then also check the check the Q&A or with like your customer service information. Quite often you'll find that as well. And I always say it's always worth a Google, because if you're asking this question, somebody else is asking it too. All right. We are going to hop out of the presentation and actually design something in Canva. Yes, in Canva you can export into several different options depending on what your end use is. I've got our little Easter flyer here as a template. I'm going to drop that in the chat if anybody would like to design in Canva as we're going through. So now you have that as a template. But I figure we could start with actually reworking this design into something that is more visually appealing. So I'd love for you to drop in the chat some examples of what we could do to make this better, and then we'll live manipulate it together. What's the first thing that you all would change? All right, remove the two bunnies. Dana, I think you're talking about these two little guys here. So let's get rid of those guys. Use bullets for the info. Absolutely. I'm going to save that one till we get maybe a few more elements off the page. Remove everything but the central bunnies and eggs. I think that is a great idea. You're also getting to see how things kind of got deconstructed. So somebody went in here and put, oh, I'm gonna pull the bunny off to the side. Somebody went in here and put each one of those little butterflies in there to start. All right, that cleans it up a bit. Let's put this bunny back here. Oh, we have a extra egg off to the side. Okay. Oh, so Chelsea thought maybe take out the middle bunny and the eggs. Chelsea, are you liking it a little more without the stuff on the side, or do you think now it looks too empty? All right, we've got make Easter special darker. I agree with that. So this is great, especially if you're new to Canva. You can see we are in a paid Canva account right now. So we are seeing our Letterpress brand kit. That is a great way to manage your branding in Canva. So that paid version gives you a full brand kit where you can upload all of your visuals, your brand colors, your logos, icons, all of those things, and help you stay on brand as you're working through. If you're not working within a brand kit, Canva also does this nice thing where it pulls out colors that you're working with. And you can see now, these are all the colors that are in the document currently. So we've got quite a bit of color range here, which for contrast isn't so great. And I'm not even sure, let's figure out what color this one was. It was this color here. So now those are the same. We might want to go slightly different. So there we've got some contrast there. You all got lots of good ideas. Let's see where we're at here. Somebody says Easter special even necessary to the message. It probably isn't. So I say we get rid of it. Shrink the center image. We'll shrink that a little bit, and we can actually see this is, now that I'm seeing this, this is two different images that have been grouped together. So it looks like we can even further simplify that image. I think somebody said move the middle bunny to the bottom and the words to the middle of the flyer. Much larger date, increased size and location. Awesome. These are all great ideas. So we've removed Easter special. We have the date and time here, so I think we can actually get rid of that from the top. You can see these are two separate elements. That is one way to help you bring things together. Canva's not 100% perfect. Sometimes you have to kind of cheat the system to get what you want. So sometimes having things on two lines can help. I recommend grouping those together, especially if we're going to resize it. So now we have an option to resize this a little bit. Somebody recommended moving the bunny to the bottom. I actually really, I started design doing yearbook and newspaper actually. So I always recommend following some traditional newspaper rules, and that would be to have photo, headline, and then copy. That we pull people in quicker with images. So I like having an image towards the top, but to each his own. But I think we'll keep the image this way. But now we have all this extra space to work with. So I think somebody said we could get rid of one of these two sections. So let's take the smaller one and we'll get rid of it. We will make this section bigger. And you can see whoever designed this put all of these onto different lines, which I don't recommend doing until you are done. Canva has a lot of things in it that keep you from messing up. So I always recommend to follow as much as possible what Canva is suggesting for you, because you can see it's showing us what is center aligned. It's going to recommend line spacing. I now think that this probably needs a little more line spacing for readability. So we're going to pop that line spacing up a little bit. Since we have a lot less information now, I think we can get rid of the horizontal section dividers. Definitely not as important when you're using contrast to delineate your elements. Switch the date and time size and color with the Meet the Bunny size and color. Oh, so you're saying that these should be larger, or the font should change? This is where it's a little more fun to do this in person. Make it more prevalent. I agree. And here now we're starting to see, again, all these different colors. We probably don't need this many different colors. Yeah, important info needs to be a little bit larger. So we can bring this down. We even probably could drop this to the bottom since it anchors a little bit more with its size and shape. Zoom in a little bit here. So one thing we need to do is add the date back since we took it away from the top. One thing I like to do is to use a vertical dash to delineate date and time. It saves you a little bit of space. It's going to give us a chance to make this bigger in the end. I also would recommend, you don't have to say start at 10 a.m. That's clear by stating a time that we know when it starts. So another thing we can do, let me zoom back out here. So we probably don't need this bar. This isn't an element that's not repeated anymore. It was up at the top. It's not up there anymore. So I don't know that we need that. I'm gonna drop these down for a minute. We can leave, that's still kind of wordy, but we'll leave that for now. And then just make up where it's located. So now I've got some date and time information. One thing again, now we still have all this center aligned text. So what we could do is align this and let's pretend that that Letterpress is hosting this. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grab our logo. I'm going to grab a white one. We'll see how this shows up. Does not show up very well. Let's try our orange one to match those egg colors there. So something you can do is add elements together to create alignment. So now we've got some alignment here. And you can use, let's see, somebody said just to make it free entry. So now we've got an element that we can align it, and then we can go back in and make everything centered. So we just took two elements, made it into one element, and brought it all together in one place. I would say the other thing that we want to do is bring our website information up here with the rest of our content. Probably don't need that anymore. Something that we always recommend for readability is to use camel case or title case when you're typing websites or hashtags. Having the capital letters of each word definitely helps with readability. So you can do that with your websites. You can do that with your hashtags. Something else that you can do to save space is we all know the www goes in front of that. So you can actually take that off and just do your site title and .com, .org, whatever goes after that. We can probably bring the spacing just a little together, get our alignment here. So now the bottom of the logo is aligned to the bottom of the information. Make it all centered. And we can anchor the design with something at the bottom with this thicker font. Really don't love this background. So something else that you can do in Canva, this was a photo background that was used in the design. If you double click into it, you can actually manipulate the background. So we'll take away a little bit of this darker color. So now we have lighter colors to put at the bottom. And then the final thing would be just to start spacing everything out. We want to use our margins as much as possible. So you've got margins here. If you like to have more guides when you're designing, which I highly recommend, Canva has lots of options with show rulers. You can add guides. You can add columns. You can show your print bleed. So if this was being printed by a professional printer and you wanted it to be full bleed and wasn't just going to be digital, then you could export this as a PDF with crop marks and send it onto your printer and have everything printed professionally with a full bleed to the edge. You can also add column guides. So designing within columns, that rule of thirds, that's another good way to ensure that your design is working well. And since we have the space, I think I'm going to drop the Easter Bunny down a little bit. I like his ear going up into the U to connect those. But that makes it a little easier to look at. And so now we have something that's a little easier on the eyes, uses a mix of center alignment and left alignment. So we aligned with the logo. We made all of that information infinitely easier to read because that most important information is no longer centered. We use the center alignment on things that weren't as important. And now we've got something that is actually simple enough that it could be used as a graphic in a newsletter, or you could print it, or you could send it out as a PDF. I know we're coming up on time, but any questions? Do you all think this is better? than where we started? Yes, definitely more eye pleasing, definitely not crowded. Um, I would encourage you all to grab that template from the chat and spend a little time in your own Canva playing around with it, seeing what you would do. You had a lot of elements in there, so there's a lot of things that you can actually work through and play around with. Sandy will be sending out the slides, but I'm going to pop back to our presentation real quick so you all can have my email address. Um, and I would love to chat with you if you have any questions about Canva or something that you're having some issues with. I dropped my email in the chat. Oh, great question. What sources do I recommend for Canva? There are a ton of resources with Canva. Canva is continually dropping new things. So they have a very strong library of support. So start with Canva, but also just Google it. There are some really great YouTube videos. Like if there's something that you know you want to do, Google it, check out a YouTube video. There's probably a content creator who has run into this issue and they're going to show you how to do it. There are some closed Facebook groups that you can join that where people are creating in Canva. And they'll actually, people will post questions and then people will come in and answer. So joining a closed Facebook group is another way to learn more about Canva. But the best way to learn is just to use it and keep practicing. So if you want to practice more, I would recommend playing with that template flyer and then try to add some animation to it, try to resize it and make it into a social graphic. If we had more time, that would have been what we would have done is take that first thing and then turn it into multiple designs. Thank you all so much. Mary Ellen, that you can find the new knowledge on the, yep, thank you, Sandy. Sandy just put it in there. Happy Canvaing. I hope you all enjoyed today, and I hope you get a chance to play around and practice with Canva some more.
Does anybody have any other questions for Alex?
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. Is this a free version of the Canva you're using, or is this a paid version?
We are in a paid version.
Okay.
I actually, and I totally forgot to say that there's a little more graphics in here than I normally would use. But I did that to highlight. So these graphics here, these are all examples of icons that you get in the paid version where you can change the colors, change what you want them to look like. If you're going to do if you're going to do more than just a couple of things in Canva, I highly recommend that paid version because you're going to get access to a lot of stock photography, to stock audio. So if you're creating videos or you're working with your reels, all of those things, you're going to get a lot in Canva to work with.
And I know you didn't cover that in this, but I've also created some short videos for you for Facebook or YouTube, just like an intro video on Canva, and it's pretty easy. And I have the free version, but if I can do it on the free version, you can do it, I'm sure, a lot better on the paid version. But
Absolutely. There's a lot of great options at the free version, even just cutting and changing your video a little bit. We did a project a while back that was we took hour-long Zoom videos and cut them down into short snippets. We've kind of also been testing the limits of Canva. We couldn't upload the whole hour-long video, so we had to cut the video apart in Adobe, but then we uploaded the short snippets and did our fine editing in Canva. So you'll find some limits to it, but it's amazing what you can do. And yes, Christian, nonprofits can get the pro version for free, and also tell all of your teacher friends. K through 12 educators can get Canva for free as well.
great. And I think, Sarah, you couldn't see my reply, but if you're looking for the archive new knowledge sessions, just go to YouTube and then type in new knowledge and you will see them there. And, please, everybody follow us on there that you'll be notified when other sessions are put up there. Any other questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. I'd like to thank Alex for doing this today. I thought I knew it. Well, didn't know it all, but I learned quite a bit. And it also, you reaffirmed some things that I've thought about in the past, and I need to start putting into practice. But we couldn't do this program without professionals like Alexandra and Letterpress Communications for supporting and sharing their knowledge with us. And of course, thank you for coming to join us today. Um, as I stated at the beginning, I just want to mention again, we are getting ready to start planning our fall series of new knowledge sessions. So if there are topics, especially if there's more topics that you would like Letterpress Communications to cover, let us know. Or if there's other business, marketing, management, IT, technology, anything that you want us to consider and to try to find presenters, let us know. You can either email me, you should have that, or chat, and even let the chamber or the incubator know, and we'll be happy to include that. Just want to do a plug for our next session. That will be on March the 20th. And this will focus on something a little different. It's the steps to starting and growing an adventure tourism business. And in Southwest Virginia, or in this area, East Tennessee and Kentucky and West Virginia, outdoor recreation is becoming it's becoming a booming business in a lot of areas. And if it's something that you've considered in launching or starting, or you want to learn more about this industry, the folks at SE Group, they're a national group that does helping communities and businesses with their outdoor recreation planning and so forth, will be leading that session. So that'll be on March the 20th. And again, just remind everybody, today's session has been recorded and will be available on the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubators Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Just go YouTube New Knowledge and you will find that, and as well as about 220 other sessions. So thanks again. Nita Farmer with Washington County Chamber, one of our partners, is online with us. Nita, would you like to say anything before we leave?
I just want to thank Alex. Every time she comes on, we get such a great presentation. She's a pleasure to work with. So thank you so much. I've been taking many notes. I might call you for some questions.
I'm here for you, Nita. I'm happy to help.
And I will
Thanks
say,
again.
from a local standpoint, Letterpress Communications helped us do the rebranding of the New Knowledge series last summer. So I know firsthand what they can do and produce. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to share. But thanks again, Alex. If I had a hat on, I would take it off and give you the salute. But thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. And if you enjoyed this session, share it with others. We do this for you. And hope to see you on the 20th. Take care. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.